Okay, so I just wanted to spend a little bit of time going through the content for this week. Like I wrote in the email, it's all pretty straightforward, and so it wouldn't take a whole lot of time to. It doesn't take a whole lot of time to really just kind of plow through it, which I'm going to do. And I've had some individual email conversations with the majority of the students in the class who are just kind of like grinding to get stuff done in both my class and one other class or two other classes. So I am definitely sensitive to that, and so I just kind of want to meet your needs through tonight. And so I hope that again, as I said in the email, that you're able to maybe put aside some time tonight to grind through a little bit of that stuff. So that being said, this week's session is on podcasting, and just a quick reflection on podcasting. It's really become in the last, I would say, 5 years or so, a really relevant and just kind of everywhere resource for information. It's really doing a lot to replace radio in a lot of instances because it's on demand. I can download podcasts that were recorded yesterday, and I can download podcasts that were recorded 3 years ago, or 5 years ago, or 7 years ago, and really kind of choose my own listening entertainment. So currently, I mean, I can't remember the last time that by myself in my own car that I actually turned on the radio and listened to live radio, because in driving to where I've got about anywhere, depending on traffic, from a 35 to 40 minute to an hour commute. It's only like 25 miles, but I get traffic both ways. So but in my commute, I just download podcasts onto my phone, and I listen to them with Bluetooth headphones. So I'm just or I'm listening to an audiobook, one of the two, and or music from time to time. But usually I save my music listening for my classroom. One of the cool things about having your own classroom is you can torture your students with your taste in music instead of having them torture you with theirs, which is good times. But yeah, so I would say probably 70% of my listening time in the car and at home is listening to podcasts of all different natures. Sports podcasts, comedy, history. There are just some really super interesting podcasts. So there's a lot of really bad ones, but there's also tons of super interesting ones, and like a lot of niche stuff. So if you're into quilting with rayon, there's probably a quilting with rayon podcast out there that will really delight you for an hour a week. So it seems like education was a little late in the game as far as podcasting is concerned, and so for quite a while, the education podcasts kind of a weird zone, and we'll take a look. I'll take a quick peek into the podcast for education in a couple of minutes, but there are currently some pretty good ones out there, and in the same way that early on in the term, I introduced you to some ways to really grow your personal learning network via blogs and Twitter and other websites like Pinterest and Facebook and just different social media applications. Podcasting can do the same thing. It can really help you grow your PLN in an audio manner, so that you're actually listening to things that interest you in the sphere of education. So there are a few different education podcasts that I listen to regularly, like weekly, as I'm driving into work or leaving work. And so a lot of times it'll help put me in a frame of mind. Sometimes it'll even, just kind of spark something in me to say, I might try that today in class. And I get into work and I actually, see a real link from what I just heard on the podcast I listened to what I'm actually doing in my classroom. So, it can really work in a few different ways. There's also the idea of flipping the microphone around and, kind of using the idea of what we exposed ourselves to last week, which is flipping class. And, maybe, if video is kind of a tough gig, and you don't necessarily want to turn a camera on yourself, or you may not have some element of your curriculum that you want to put on a video feed. You can always create an audio feed or your own quote unquote podcast that you can put in your website, or in a Google Classroom, or on a blog, or however you would facilitate your audio to students, and have your students listen to something and maybe take notes, or listen to some element of your curriculum in order to come prepared for class the next day, in order to actually perform some kind of a task around what you've recorded. And you can flip the microphone even further and have students actually create podcasts. So you have students writing in order to deliver some audio that's hosted on the web. So there's a lot of different ways that you can use podcasts in education. Our focus this week is going to be on listening to other podcasts and having and then actually creating a piece of audio. And I just realized that you've been watching me and not my screen, and I've wanted you to be watching my screen. Okay. Are you seeing my screen now instead of me? Yes? Cool. All right, so here's our web page for the week. I pasted the link in the chat window in the Hangout, just to make sure that you all have it. I will pop it in there again. There you go. Okay, it's a pretty short page this week, full of a bunch of links, not all of which you have to click on, but just offering some different opportunities. As far as podcast apps are concerned, the one I use on my phone, since I have an Android phone, it is called oh gosh, why don't I know the name of it? Let's see. It is called Pocket Cast. And so I just have like podcasts that download automatically to my phone whenever a new one comes out. But for Apple, for your iPad or your iPhone, the top two podcast aggregators are the one by Apple called Podcasts, and then there's another one called Overcast, which used to cost money and now it's free. And so I'm going to just quickly share the two of those with you, just so you can kind of get a taste of what a podcast aggregator looks like. So these are the two. Let's see real quick. Okay, so this app right here, it comes on your iPad and on your iPhone automatically. It's called Podcasts. Good name for it, right? And again, this being my new iPad, I haven't used the podcast apps on my iPad. Again, because I use it on my phone. But oh, look, it's filling in for me. Good to see. Okay, so it knows my account, so it's jumping on to a bunch of my app, the podcast that I used to follow here. So just by clicking the plus button up here, I can search for podcasts. Actually, more in line of looking down here at the bottom.
BAM Radio Network. So before you flipped, you were...
Okay, let's not play with that. You can see down here that I have a listing, unplayed here, 2 unplayed podcasts. But if I come over here to my podcast and click that, it's going to give me a listing of all the podcasts that that I followed. And on my iPad, pretty much the majority of them are all education, because I use my iPad for this class. So just kind of showing the different educational podcasts that are out there. But if I scroll over down here to top charts, I will then get a peek into the podcast store, basically. I call it a store because it's where all the podcasts live, but really it's a store where everything's free. So there's podcasts are all free. Some of them have commercials to help whoever's making them make money. But and some of them have like actual commercials. Others have where the hosts will do like a live read. They'll read out the advertisements. But just kind of scrolling through here and just it's kind of coming in a little slowly. You can see on the left-hand side we have audio podcasts. On the right-hand side there are video podcasts. I don't watch a whole lot of video podcasts. I'm mostly focused on the audio podcast. And pretty much number one all the time is This American Life, the little NPR one. But there are literally podcasts in all kinds of different categories. So I'm going to go up here to the top, and I am going to click on categories there. And it will generate here for me a window. And we have podcasts in all these different categories. Okay, TV and film, sports, society, science and medicine, religion, news, kids and family, games and hobbies, education. And so I'm going to go ahead and click on that education link. And really the majority of the popular audio podcasts are language podcasts. So when we look at education, we're looking at language training. So you'll see Coffee Break Spanish, Coffee Break French, English as a second language, Learn Spanish Pod 101, Learn Spanish Survival Guide, Learn to Speak Spanish with Discover Spanish. And so you're going to see a lot of different things in here. And what I've found as someone who's looking for podcasts, if I'm looking for podcasts about education, this is a tough spot for me just to jump into and look at the education podcast, because there's not a whole lot of podcasts about education and about teaching. Okay, a lot of them are podcasts that I would listen to educate myself. And as you can see on here, the majority of the most popular ones are language learning podcasts. Okay, but we also have from BBC Radio, the English We Speak, and that's probably like a linguistics podcast. Looking in the middle there at 26, the Master of Memory, Accelerated Learning, Education, and Memorization, GRE, Vocabulary, the London School of Economics, Public Lectures. So as we scroll down, we're seeing some different categories here. The New York Public Library podcast. And so there's a lot of things that we might be able to consider to be like super interesting, just on a personal level as far as education is concerned. But when I start looking at things that kind of feed me as a teacher and help me grow as a teacher, it's hard for me to find stuff when I'm just looking here on the actual top charts in the iTunes podcast app. So I might go up to the search area up here, and I might type in like education. Since I'm super interested in education technology, I might type in education technology up in that search field. And it feels a little like my iPad that you're looking at here is a little bit behind my actual iPad. So by doing a search in the actual podcasting app, I might wind up finding some podcasts that are more in tune with what I'm looking for. But one of the main ways that I have found to find podcasts that really kind of reach what I want to hear and listen to, is I'll just do a web search, you know, like educator podcast or something to that degree. You know, if there's a niche area that I'm interested in, I might kind of do a search there. But you know, the first one I get is 50 educational podcasts you should check out. But this is educational and not necessarily educator. Here I have from Edutopia, which I personally know is a site by the George Lucas Educational Foundation for teachers. So that might be a good place for me to check out when I'm looking, you know, if I'm looking. So I'll just kind of do a web search first. And then if I find something in my web search that I think really kind of meets or might be interesting, then I will search for that podcast specifically in my podcasting app. So there's EdChat Radio, Angela Watson's Truth for Teachers, Every Classroom Matters, Science Underground, so I'm a science teacher, Talks with Teachers, that goes over teaching strategies, Moving at the Speed of Creativity. And so there's a few different ones that I could check out just by, you know, was basically the second link in a Google search. One of the things that I've done for us on this webpage is I've collected a series of podcasts here, that some that I've listened to, others that, and then I still listen to, others that I've tried out and not really kind of met where I was, but may meet where other teachers are. But there's a whole bunch of, I've got like 6 or 7 here. So there's the TeacherCast Broadcasting Network, and I've got some sample podcasts here, and these are all linked. Okay, so if I were to click on the TeacherCast Broadcasting Network, it would open up a tab on my computer that would take me to the actual page, the web page where this podcast lives. Also knowing that if I want to download it into my podcast aggregator, that I would be able to do that, and because these podcasts all live in iTunes as well. Okay, so these are all different podcasts here. Okay, 6 wearable technologies that are most helpful in the classroom. If I'm like, oh man, I want to wear some Google Glass and I want to be able to search through my glasses and, you know, be able to, you know, that might be a podcast that I would click on and check out. And one of the cool things is that I could go ahead and find it on my phone or my iPad and listen to it there mobily. Or if I'm just sitting at my computer and I want to listen to it here, I can just go to the website and listen to the podcast right here, although this isn't, is it? No, this is actually a blog. Bummer. Sorry. Make sure you guys are still here. My internet is like, yes, I see Nancy's head moving, good. For some reason, my internet is slowing down on me back here. Go to media, go to all shows, broadcast archives. There we go. So they've got a bunch of different shows on this TeacherCast Educator Network, some for principals, some for ed tech, the App Spotlight, TeacherCast University. So they've got a lot of different ones here, but let's see. Why Swivel is the perfect tool for your flipped classroom. See, I would have loved to have listened to this classroom last week before I taught my flipped learning class. That would have been awesome. I should have listened. If only I would have listened to it and had a really cool new tool for you to check out. I know one of you guys did Erasma, did a profile on that in your work on apps, and that's like an augmented reality app. That's pretty cool. But this is, this is kind of their repository for their podcast, and you could basically just listen to either a video version or an audio version of that podcast right here on the web page. Or you
Today's video is brought to you by StoryboardThat.com. Please visit teachercast.net/storyboardthat for a limited time offer.
Okay, so there was their little ad, right? So they're making a little money for providing people with information.
TeacherCast, or leave us a voicemail over at teachercast.net/voicemail. Of course, you can subscribe to our audio and video shows over on
And the cool thing about a lot of these educational podcasts is they're not very long. So this one's only 13 minutes. So even if I have a short commute, if I can listen to something about this app called Swivel on my way to work, and then when I get to work, I'm like, let me check that app out. And it might be something that I might want to just start using. Okay? So just understanding that podcasts are a viable and just a different way to access your PLN. Okay? And so there's a whole nice list of those here, including some sample podcasts. So if you click on any one of these, okay, if I'm looking at the flip side, which is a flipped learning podcast, and I look down here and it's like a step-by-step tour of a great flipped lesson. Well, I just learned about flipped classes last week and actually created a couple of sample flipped lessons for my assignment. Let me check out this step-by-step tour of a great flipped lesson. You might click right on that link, and that link will open up that actual podcast, or I could actually just click on the button that says play it, and it'll open up this little window, and you can actually play it there. Okay, so those links that are on that page all lead directly to different podcasts. So you can, one of your blog this week is basically going to ask that you listen to one of these podcasts or a different educational podcast. So you can choose any one of these that I have linked right up here if you'd like. Okay, so don't be shy to just kind of search around, or I know some of you guys are really pressed for time. You can always just choose one of the ones that I have offered right here on this page. So let's crack into our different projects for the week. We have our community discussion, okay, and that's the community discussion this week is on a website full of video podcasts called the Infinite Thinking Machine. And so I'm going to just pop in there real quick. This is a group of California educators that got together to create a lot of times kind of funny and always kind of light podcasts, video podcasts. Okay, and there's a lot of them on here, and all I want you to do is find one that meets, kind of speaks to you a little bit, and watch it. Okay, choose one of the broadcasts to watch and write a brief reflection on what it was about, and what you thought about it. And you can also, okay, because this is in our community, you can put, because all the videos are YouTube, you can share the video as well. Okay, so just share the video, share some thoughts on it, and that's your community discussion for the week. Your blog for the week has to do with an educational podcast, like I referenced just a couple minutes ago. Listen to one of the above podcasts or any education-based podcast that you encounter by searching a podcast aggregator. Distill what you learned from the podcast into a paragraph, and then reflect on your listening experience in the second paragraph. So just one quick shot on, what it was that I listened to, and then another quick shot on, what it was like to actually listen to it. Was it hard to focus? Was it, is it not your style of learning? Did it really meet your needs? Did you think it was really cool? Did you, just a personal reflection on the experience itself. Then your project for this week is I'm actually going to have you create a podcast. And not so much a podcast as it is an audio recording, but because this is our podcast week, we're going to go ahead and call it a podcast. What I want you to do is to create a short, 3 to 6 minute podcast reflecting on a short read called Why School? How Education Must Change When Learning and Information Are Everywhere by Will Richardson. And it's $2.99 in iBooks if you have an iPad, or if you're a Kindle reader, same price in Kindle. Just do a search for that book. And I think, if it was a paperback book, it would probably be about 60 pages, 65 pages, super short, and it reads very quickly. So it's both short and it reads quickly. So it really shouldn't take you long to read it. And what I'd like you to do is to, so that's the first, read it. Number two, I'd like you to just outline some thoughts you'd like to discuss in your reflection. Okay, so the main idea is you're going to be reflecting on what you read in the book, but you're going to be reflecting on it via an audio recording. Okay, so no, I don't need any written, there's no writing element to this except to just, to be cohesive with your thoughts, something that you that you can follow. And depending on who you are, this could be something you script out fully or just kind of put down bullets and then just riff on your bullets. Okay, produce a 3 to 6 minute podcast reflecting on the reading. This can be a summary of a section, an opinion of a section, or any combination of the two. And then I've got some instructions down here, and I do this a lot with my students. I'll create a Google slide deck that is actually instructions or a tutorial for whatever it is I want them to complete. This is one of the things I go through in Education 512 is different ways to use Google tools, and in this case Google Slides, and it's really kind of using Google Slides not as something to present, but as a step-by-step tutorial on something, because it works really well for that. One of the reasons it works really well, and I'll show that to you in a minute. So here's the process on slide 3. I want you to watch a video tutorial to learn how to create a podcast with Garageband on your iPad. Okay, this is one of the things we were going to do tonight that was going to take the majority of our time, because it's, to do it at the beginning is, it takes a little work. So I was going to give you some time to create that podcast, but, in truncating this class and really mashing it down into a half hour, I'm just going to have you watch a video tutorial instead. Slides 4 and 5 show you how to sign up for SoundCloud. Okay, SoundCloud is, and let's go there real quick. If you've never heard of SoundCloud, SoundCloud is basically like YouTube for audio. Okay, so in SoundCloud you can upload your own audio recordings, and you can also follow people. So like my son's a musician, so I'll have a lot of my son's music on here that he creates. But like SoundCloud, it's really nice because it allows you to upload any kind of audio that you might create, and then it also allows you to embed that audio just like this. So these are a couple of examples from former 515 students of their podcast that they created, and it's on the same topic. So I put these examples here for you to get a taste of kind of what we're looking for. They're two different takes on it, on the podcast, but they're there for you to chew on, to give you some an actual physical example of what this sounds like. So slides 4 and 5 show you how to sign up for SoundCloud, and slide 6 it contains instructions for embedding your podcast on your site. Okay, so if I jump to slide 2, one of the great things about using Google Slides is it's super easy to pop in a YouTube video. So if there's any kind of video that you want your students to use as a tutorial device, it's really easy just to pop it right into your Google Slides. So this podcast, it's under 4 minutes and 22 seconds long, and it really does a great job of showing you step by step how to create a podcast with Garageband. Okay, and if you have an iPad, you have Garageband. Okay, so it's the little app with the guitar on it. All right, so Garageband is a pretty easy tool to use if you've never used it before, and this 4 minute and 20-second video will show you exactly how to use it, and it'll show you how to upload whatever you create on it directly to SoundCloud. So that's an element that's in this video as well at the end.
To the SoundCloud account that you...
Okay, yeah, when you create it, it'll show you exactly. It has a little SoundCloud icon that shows up, and it'll show you exactly how to pop it into SoundCloud. But before you actually pop it into SoundCloud, you need a SoundCloud account. Okay, and so the next slides, 4 and 5, they show you how to do it. It's very simple. Go to soundcloud.com, sign up by clicking the sign up button, and then choose the Google option, sign in with Google. And like we saw week 3 when we were doing our Google stuff, that little box will come up that basically is the handshake between SoundCloud and Google, and no problem. It just signs you right up, and it's really easy. Okay, and then the final slide here shows you how to embed your podcast or your audio recording once it's in SoundCloud. You'll see when your recording is there, and that's what all those little wave forms are right there. That's the sound of the visualization of the sounds of your podcast. You'll just click that share button. This dialog box will come up. You click on embed, and then copy and paste the code into Weebly. Okay, real simple. Okay, so this is just to give you some practice with the tools, some understanding of how you can use audio as a tool with your students, as maybe a teaching and learning tool, and then exposing you to some different educational podcasts that are out there. Breathe. Okay. So I'm going to pop back in here. Any questions? You can type them right in the chat box if you have them. All right. Okay, cool. So again, you guys have been really good about communicating with me about any issues you're having. So continue with that process. We had two, Christiana and Joshua were not here tonight, so I'll go ahead and make sure that I post this now 30-minute video.